Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. About the only activity older than collecting autographs is signing your name to a piece of paper. Earlier this year, Keith Silva spoke with an autograph collector well known to the Across the Fence audience. Howard Coffin began collecting autographs after being introduced to the hobby by a family member who told him he'd recently bought and sold an Abraham Lincoln signature. Howard made his mark with a Lincoln all his own, and he has collected several hundred more autographs since, some famous and others more of what you might call closer to the heart. Here's our signature conversation between Keith and Howard.
Before we get to autograph collecting, congratulations and kudos are in order. You've added a new title to your CV. You recently received an honorary degree from the Vermont State University, formerly Linden State College. How did that come about?
Well, some friends of mine, I guess. I have never had a college degree. I dropped out of Linden State Teachers College in 1963 and proceeded to get drafted, and I never went back to college. But of course, Linden is now part of Northern Vermont University, and they gave me an honorary degree in June of 24, and so I now have a degree, and it was one of the best days of my life. I was so excited.
Do you have any jobs lined up, any prospects as a new graduate?
I think most of my work is done, but I did get a chance to speak to the students about Abraham Lincoln, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
And you picked up on your last lesson that you taught, you told me. You were talking about Lincoln at the last time you taught, and then this time you picked right up where you left off.
Yes, my last day at Linden Teachers College, I was teaching Lincoln to the 5th grade in Linden Center, and that night I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, and I hitchhiked away from school never to return. And I went back to and resumed where I left off, talking about Lincoln.
Long time between lessons. Are you making everyone call you doctor now?
I am not.
You're not. All right, good. It's good to know. My thanks to Corrine Cooper for providing those photos for us to share of Howard on his big day. But now we turn to autographs. How did you start collecting autographs, Howard?
I was in Kennebunkport, Maine, visiting my Uncle Charles, or Chick, and we were walking through Kennebunk, and we passed an antique shop, and he looked in there and said, "I bought an Abraham Lincoln autograph there last week." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yes." He said, I bought it. I said, "Where is it?" He said, "I sold it, made $50 on it." And I said, and then he said something that changed my life. He said, "You know, after a man's gone, all that's left is that signature." Got me interested in autographs. He didn't have much money. If he could afford a Lincoln autograph, maybe I could. And I started looking for one, and a month later I found one in a shop in Rutland, and I still have it. That was more than 50 years ago.
Yes, and we have it here on set with us today. So this is the autograph you bought in this very nice frame. And you can see Abraham Lincoln is down here in the corner. You can see the Lincoln signature there, and this is also signed by Edwin Stanton, who is the Secretary of War. And what is this document, Howard?
It's a commission appointing a Vermonter to be an officer in the cavalry. Okay. And 1864, and when I got it verified by an expert to make sure it was authentic, he pointed out that the signature is a little shaky because by 64 Lincoln is getting very tired. The war is wearing him out.
So your first autograph that you ever got, do you remember what you paid?
$200.
$200. So Chick wasn't wrong.
A lot of money at that time.
A lot of money at that time.
Yes.
So you got the bug after that.
I got the bug after that. It wasn't the first autograph I ever got.
No, we have that here.
It's right here.
Yes.
A friend of mine took me to a Louis Armstrong concert at Dartmouth when I was about 12 years old, and he had connections, and we went after the concert to the dressing room, and Armstrong signed that in the dressing room for me. It was my first real concert, and the sound of his horn was so huge, it was deafening. It was wonderful.
So you bring up a very interesting point. I think a lot of people probably, if they buy autographs now, there's always a concern for fraud.
Yes.
And you got this signed in front of you, so you really know that that's Louis Armstrong's signature.
No question about it.
No question about it. You had the Lincoln one verified. Is this something that if people wanted to collect autographs, they really need to know?
Yes, and it always can be an issue. The best advice I guess I would give is to go to a reputable dealer, and there's usually someone at your local university
Okay.
who knows about autographs and special collections, so they're always happy to help you.
Okay. So yeah, the internet probably you could look and find someone
Sure.
who can verify autographs. We have one here. We just talked about a Civil War one. This is another big name in the Civil War, Ulysses S. Grant. That is Grant's signature down there at the bottom.
Yes, and the upper part is in his hand.
Okay.
Grant is angry at an officer here who has made off with about $12,000, and Grant's telling him to get it back. And Grant, incidentally, a month before he wrote this, he writes it at Vicksburg, the site of maybe his greatest victory, except for perhaps Appomattox.
Right.
But that's why it's so important. It's signed at Vicksburg. But a month before he wrote this, he had been injured in an accident. A horse had followed on him, and he was the best rider in the Union armies. Some people said he was drunk. I don't think he was, but he was in bed when he wrote that. He was recovering.
And you said that this is rare, and it was so rare that the man who wrote Grant's biography or dealt with his
John
papers
Y. Simon
had never seen it
had
before.
never seen it, never knew about it, and I sent him a copy, and it's now included.
Now included. Another Civil War era, not as prominent a name, but an important name in Vermont. I know. What is this? Who is this letter from, Howard?
That is a note from Thaddeus Stevens, probably Vermont's most important Civil War era personality, the most powerful man in Congress, born in Danville.
That's right.
And here is Thaddeus Stevens writing to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton. After Lincoln's death, they're trying to impeach Andrew Johnson.
Right.
And this concerns the fact that Stevens is dying. This is 3 months before he dies, and he's just getting out of bed from a bout with illness, and he's talking about replacing himself. It's a very important note in the impeachment process, and I bought it from a dealer who didn't apparently know what he had.
Aha. We only have a few minutes left. I want to get to some names that folks would know.
Sure.
And we got a couple of autographs here from a baseball player. Who is this for the Vermont Mariners, Howard?
That is Ken Griffey Jr., one of the great players who ever played. He played 2/3 of a season at Centennial Field, and I think I saw every game he played. And I interviewed him for a magazine article, and he signed it that day.
Very nice. And you have another one here, someone that a lot of our viewers will know right off. Anyone will know. Who's this?
Well, that is Richard Petty, the great auto driver, and I went up to Thunder Road one night with Ken Squire, and I'm always looking for an opportunity, and Petty was there, and Ken got me up close to him, and I got that autograph.
So
always looking.
So always looking. So some of this is about collecting. Some of this is about going where the people are to get their autograph.
Absolutely.
And you love that part of it, or loved that part of it.
Yes, it's been a hobby for me. Okay. It's been a lot of fun.
Right.
And sometimes profitable. Yes, absolutely.
I want to get to, I'm going to save one for the end. This is a book that is autographed by Robert Frost, Vermont's own. And there's the Robert Frost autograph in there. And this has a good story because you saved this.
I bought that at the Brattle Bookstore in Boston, 45 years ago. And I paid $35 for it, which was a lot of money for me then. George Gloss owned the Brattle Bookstore. He had 450,000 books. The day after I bought this, the store burned to the ground. All the books were gone. And ever after, when I went into the rebuilt shop, George always said, "Here's the man who rescued the Frost."
The Frost.
Yes, I met Frost once, a long time ago, at the Woodstock Inn, the old Woodstock.
In your hometown of Woodstock,
yes.
As many of our viewers know. We have two more that I'd like to get to that have some provenance. This first one here. Tell me about this one, Howard.
That is a letter to me from Sweeney, General Sweeney, who piloted the bomber who dropped the A-bomb on Nagasaki, which is an event that I'm not especially fond of. I'm not sure it was necessary. He thought it was, of course. And it's filled with good content, which is important to letters. He mentions General Tebbets, who commanded the Enola Gay that dropped the other bomb.
Right, the first one.
And he talks about the code word for the operation in here. Wonderful content. Tibbets's signatures are very common. Sweeney's not.
And silver plate. We don't want to give anything away, but silver plate.
Plate was apparently the code name for the operation.
For the operation. One last thing, we have an autograph here that is probably a little less known, but it's got a wonderful story to it. I'm going to hold this up so the camera can get it. Tell us whose this autograph is, Howard.
I have a daughter named Anya, A-N-Y-A, and when she was a little person, one afternoon I set about teaching her how to write her name, and this is the first time she succeeded, and I saved it. So I have my daughter's first autograph.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
Well, that takes care of things for us. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing part of your collection with us. It is time for us to sign off on another Across the Fence. My thanks to the crew behind the scenes who work hard to make us look good and sound good. And thanks to you for stopping by Across the Fence.